the rest of the week, actually, I'm in for Mo Bean. We're going to talk about some interesting topics this week, but tonight we're going to talk about royal fever and our obsession or maybe sometimes our feelings and sentiments towards the royal family. Are we fans of the royal family? Are you people who can empathise with the royal family in any way? Do you see sometimes the things that go on with the royal family in your own family? Now let's get some real talk. If you have any issues with your in-laws or any issues with I don't know, people who have married into your family, do you see eye to eye with everyone? I mean, you don't see eye to eye with most of the people in our own family, let alone people who marry into our family sometimes as well. So it'd be good to get your thoughts on that. And also, want to focus on the Meghan Markle effect as well. She is expecting her first child with Harry as well. So exciting times for the royal family. And wanted to know what impact has she had. She's somebody who's come from a diverse background and married into the royal family. She's been accepted by the royal family. Has she been accepted by society? Has she actually really been accepted by the royal family? We want to get into the nuts and bolts of it tonight. We've also been speaking to you guys and getting a sense of what you think about it.
The royal family can have its pros and cons. However, it can come across a little bit shady by being so private and closed.
So yeah, that's what we've been talking about. We've been talking to some of our listeners. We've been getting out there to speak to you guys and get your thoughts on whether the royal family are a good thing. Some people think that actually we shouldn't have a monarchy and we should have abolished it years ago. But you know, everybody's got an opinion. You can't necessarily agree or have the same opinion as everybody else. So it'd be great to get your thoughts. Do tweet us at BBC Asian Network or text us on 81869 as well. Just to warn you though, it does get a little bit naughty and a little bit fruity our language after 10 o'clock, so do go to one of our other programmes on the Asian Network website or the BBC Sounds app if you're easily offended, but otherwise please do stick with us as well, because we want to know why we are obsessed with the royal family or whether you're a little bit disillusioned sometimes with the royal family as well. So plenty of guests coming up as well. It'll be great to have you along for the next couple of hours. Raja Kumari and Mira on the BBC Asian Network, anchoring for Mo Bean for this week. We're talking about royal fever tonight. We're talking about whether you're obsessed with the royal family and your thoughts on the current monarchy as well. I mean, look, there are some people who say that the monarchy has arcane rules and protocol, and we've fought a revolution to rid ourselves of the monarchy. And yes, it seems to be this oddly American thing to be obsessed with British royalty, when most Brits say to bloody hell with all the pomp and circumstance. So you have that side of the coin, but there's also, some people say, a solemn beauty to a crowd of people who are going to sing God Save the Queen, and there's a comfort to the rules and regulations and the duty and honour of God and country, so to speak. So there are two sides of the coin to sit on, and we want to talk about that, and we have had some of your thoughts on this already.
The royal family can have its pros and cons. However, it can come across a little bit shady by being so private and closed.
So we're going to get plenty more of your thoughts and opinions on that as well. We've got a few guests in the studio with me as well. Text us on 81869. Do tweet us at BBC Asian Network. We'd love to get you to join our conversation. Finn. So it's gone 10:30 on the BBC Asian Network. As I mentioned, we're talking about the royal family and royal fever. I've got a couple of lovely guests who've joined me. Well, they look like they've both got hay fever as well, because I can see Rena wiping snot away from her nose. Sorry to paint that picture, listeners, but I was doing the same earlier whilst I was having dinner with my producer, and I had like a plate full of tissues everywhere. And my other guest next to Rena, who I'm going to introduce shortly, Thomas, he was just telling me that he has hay fever issues as well. Welcome very much to the programme. Rena Annabelle, first of all, journalist. We've had you on our programme, obviously giving your expert opinion on many occasions. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. And you're supposed to kind of keep things like that off radio.
I'm sorry, but I bear my
snotty and running, and you guys, no one can see it.
I bear my snottiness to the world, so
okay.
we can all do it together as well. I've also got Thomas Mace-Archer-Mills, founder and director from British Monarchist Society. Thomas, are you struggling still with your hay fever?
I am struggling, but I'm keeping it pretty well contained for this segment.
You look very well wrapped up as well. I love the gear, the outfit that you've got on as well.
Thank you very much.
We're talking about the monarchy. Rita, I wanted to actually come to you first of all. You went to the most recent royal wedding, is that right?
I did, yeah.
Okay.
I was
Tell me
actually,
about this.
so I was my dad's +1 actually, and he got invited because, you know, like the members of the public, like I think it's about 1,000 members of the public who were working for charity and things like that, they got nominated to go. So my dad was one of these people because he does a lot of charity work in the Midlands, and then he asked me to be his +1. So I went along, and at the time when he asked me, I was like, oh, okay, that'd be cool. And then I said to my sister, because I've got two sisters, so one was in India, and then the other one I was like, do you want to go? And she was like, oh, I don't know. And I was like, it is a lot of standing around. And she went, nah, forget it, forget it. So, and I don't think I realised what a big deal it was to accompany my dad to that wedding. I didn't realise, but as it got closer to the event and the build-up started happening, and then everyone I was telling, I was like just quite blasé, oh yeah, I'm going to go with my dad. They were like, oh my gosh, you're going to go, it's so amazing. And I felt like I was swept along by the excitement as well.
Right, okay, so you bought into it.
Kind of, and not just because like I'm obsessed with the royal family or anything. Like I feel a bit like my generation wasn't so obsessed with the royal family as, for example, my dad's generation or my father-in-law. You know, and I think that's a little bit of the colonial footprint from their generation.
I think so. When they came to this country, the royal family was heavily everywhere, wasn't it? It was one of those things where you couldn't move without hearing or reading about the royal family, seeing the royal family.
Yeah, and then also when they visited India, it was a massive deal as well because, like my dad, I think he, as a boy, I think he was taken to, I think when the king came to Delhi, I'm sure he was. He told me something like that, and his dad took him along, and so he was like, you know, really excited by that whole thing as well. And then my father-in-law, who's Ghanaian, and he's like about 80 plus years old. Like he, when I first went to his house, he had like newspaper clippings of the Queen Mother's funeral on his wall. And so I was like, oh, okay, you know, I thought it was just us. But so yeah, I think that they were more interested in royalty than my generation. But for me, I think the fact that the whole country was actually brought together celebrating, like most people were interested in some way in this event, you know, and the fact that it was quite a different wedding as well, like, you know, she's mixed race, she's an actress, she's American. It was quite a big deal for the royal family.
Yeah, Thomas, I mean, I felt that this particular royal wedding, the reverberations of it with Meghan Markle coming into the royal family, American actress, you know, woman from a diverse background, that seemed to send positive shockwaves around the world, didn't it?
Well, it did, simply for the fact that the American that tried to marry in before, Miss Wallace Simpson, the twice divorced American, was unable to do so. But when we look at the diversity, when we look at Meghan Markle being an American, being self-identified as biracial, I think that says a lot because it's fully putting the royal family as representative, really, of the nation that we live in now. I was just listening to Rena, and I think it's absolutely wonderful that her family has such a rich heritage going all the way back to the Delhi Durbar, which would have been King George V and Queen Mary.
Yeah.
So the royal wedding in 2018 of the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, absolutely fantastic. I was there reporting for 5 different networks, so it was work for me. So as I'm watching everyone enjoy their day with their picnics, I sent my assistant down to the Prosecco cart and had a little fun myself. But when we look at the importance of the royal family, we look at the importance of royal events. We're not like any other country. We don't have an Independence Day. We don't have a day that brings us all together where we say, oh, we got our freedom on this day. So when we look at days, really, of celebratory means, it's always surrounding a royal event. And case in point, the Queen's Diamond Jubilee of 2012, it was the largest, most populous attended event with over 1 million people in front of the palace. That really is fantastic for the time that we live in. When we look at deference to the crown, it no longer exists like it did in the day of your father and your family. Right. And you spoke of the colonial footprint, so times really have changed, and we look at the breakdown of empire, we look at the breakdown of the importance of the crown around the world, but the fragments were picked up by George VI and carried through by the current queen to build the Commonwealth, which is again world unity. So there is worldwide interest in the crown simply because the queen is head of the Commonwealth.
Yeah, Rena, when you were at the wedding itself, what did you get to see and what did you get to experience? Because when you watch it on TV, you just see all those celebrities and dignitaries who head in and enjoy it. What did you get to see and experience?
Okay, so being part of that crowd of invited people, we weren't obviously in the chapel because it's a small space, and then they were actually like family and celebrities and stuff. So we had like designated areas just outside the chapel at Windsor Castle, so just outside and like opposite the entrance and where all the guests were being dropped off. So me and my dad were where all the guests were being dropped off, and so you could see everybody going in, and you know, kind of us pointing out to my dad, this person, and that was quite nice to see everybody, and everyone was like super excited and like waving to everybody. And they played the service on loudspeakers outside, and then they'd given us the service booklets. So when we all like sat down and had our lunch and whatever, we were actually just listening along and reading along, and that kind of made me feel like, you know what, it's just like two people. Like when you read along, it could be anyone's names in that service booklet. It's a wedding at the end of the day that you're at, and you know, that just came across. And because like being there instead of watching it on TV, we missed all the hype about, oh my gosh, look at her dress, what's she wearing? Look at her nails, look at her hair. And now this person's arriving, that person's arriving. Look at the flowers. Like we went in afterwards when everybody had come out of the chapel. We kind of went in, had a little tour around, and saw all these nice floral displays and stuff. But I'm kind of glad that we missed that, because you just take it for what it is when you're there.
Okay, so with Meghan Markle, I think she's managed to get column inches around the world for the royal family. Well, what impact do you think that she's had on I suppose, the way this current generation views the royal family?
I actually think that the royal family is becoming a bit more down to earth. And so, for example, like my generation, maybe people younger than me, so people who are like maybe in their 20s or younger than that, you know, they might be reading more about the royal family than I ever did. Because, for example, like I just randomly tuned into Radio 1 one day, and Prince William and Kate were on there, a studio guest, talking about
that's a
ordering
conscious
takeaway and binge watching Homeland.
But do you think this is a conscious effort that they're trying to make and appeal to a younger audience?
I think so. I
would agree, definitely. I mean, there's no greater PR machine than Family Windsor. That's just the way of it. And we see that every generation of the royal family, they always have a celebrity. Whether it was Prince Edward, who later became Edward VIII, he was the most popular modern-day superstar for the royal family. But when we look at generations growing up with counterparts, such as I've grown up with Prince William, we're roughly the same age. People that come after me will grow up with Prince George, these sorts of things. So we look at the royal family this day and age as superstars, but there is a very big danger that we need to address here, that being royal is not the exact same as being celebrity. And crossing those lines can be dangerous, because
but those lines,
something more.
Those lines get blurred all the time because of the tabloids and because of the sort of TV programs which filter 24/7 coverage now.
Yes, and that can be destructive to the crown as a whole. Of course, the royal family has their star players, their key players, but first and foremost, we look at the Queen as the crown, as head of state. Her family, of course, those that are in direct line, have a certain way that they must act. But let's take Prince Harry and say, okay, he's been allowed more freedom than Prince William. He's been given a little more leverage than Prince William. He's been able to really go and find who he is and find the wife that he really wants for himself. And I don't think that would have been allowed for Prince William.
Yeah, I was going to say, if Prince William wanted to bring home an actress from America who was from a different background, different diverse background, as a person of colour, would that have been accepted for somebody who's going to be next in line to the throne, potentially?
I don't know, you know, I really don't know. I think Prince Harry, like you said, he has gotten away with a lot more stuff, even in the eyes of the public. I mean, he's done some, like, quite silly things in the past, and people are always all right, it's Harry, you know.
He's a lad's lad.
Yeah,
Las
exactly.
Vegas.
And it's quite endearing in a way, even though some of the stuff was quite questionable, like, you know, that he did. But it is quite endearing in a way, and yeah, I don't know if Prince William would have been allowed to do that. Maybe not, because it's a big deal, you know what I mean? It's a big deal, like,
I think
you could have had, like, because then the future King of England could have had an afro, and I don't know if that would have, you know, gone down too well.
You don't think that would have gone down too well?
I'd like to touch on a point that you said, that the royal family is becoming more down to earth. And I think certain factions are. And when we look generationally, we look at the Queen and her peers. My grandfather, for instance, thinks that the monarchy is heading in the wrong direction. There's not enough properness that's happening there. And I think it is generational, but you're really onto something, saying that they are coming down to earth and being, let's just say, more touchable, if you will, especially with the younger generations. But at that point, when do we say that there is possibly a jeopardizing moment of the crown, when they cease to become magical and cease to become that air of mystery that the tabloids like to write about, and we see them as just normal people? Then we say they're no better than the celebrity that I'm reading in the tabloids. So where do we draw the line and say, wait a minute, what's the purpose rather than what's the function?
Okay.
But then I think people are obsessed with celebrities anyway. Like, look, when you look at India and Bollywood, the actors are treated like they're actually
Like the
kings and
royalty,
queens.
yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's
so
the opposite,
I think it's
yeah.
the same thing. And also, I feel like the royal family now, like the young royals, I don't know about their fathers and mothers or whatever, but the young royals, I've noticed, they are speaking out about issues a little bit more. And I kind of feel like, okay, if you're there and you're in the royal family, you might as well do things like this to actually make a difference to the world.
Right.
You know?
Okay, yeah, okay, cool. We'll pick this up again in the next few minutes. Let's play a couple of tracks as well. Good to get your thoughts as well if you're listening at home, 81869, or tweet us at BBC Asian Network. The royal family, are you obsessed with it? Do you think it's an outdated concept? Get in touch. Saying Anjali on the BBC Asian Network. Hi, I'm Ankar. I'm in for Mobin for the rest of this week. We're talking about the royal family, and I've got Rena and Thomas in the studio with me to discuss the royal family and Meghan Markle making column inches all around the world with her pending pregnancy, and also all these hoaxes on social media as well about she's already had the baby or has the baby come. And
Go to Frogmore Cottage on Saturday morning. So it was all speculation. Oh, they've had the baby, they're not telling us. So
we'll find out eventually, I'm sure.
eventually.
I think the world will keep spinning as well. Let me play you both some audio of some of the people we've been speaking to on the street, some of our listeners, and just to bring you a sense of what they think about the current royal family.
I really do like the royal family. I love what they represent, especially William, Harry and their wives, and they are going to be great representation for the future generations. But certainly the Queen and the older generations, they've set what is a really great British institution, something that I may not be English, but I'm certainly British. I do see myself as British. They are something that represent this country throughout the world, and I really do feel that we should be proud of having them as a royal family. I just love the royal family.
It's just like everyone else, because they're important, because the Queen runs the whole country. Yeah, it's how they are, because they are royals. And I just like them because they're just nice people, and they dress up nice, they live nice.
The royal family can have its pros and cons. For example, it brings in a lot of tourism and follows traditions of thousands of years and represents the Commonwealth quite well. However, it can come across a little bit shady by being so private and closed, and it doesn't really have that much power over government. For example, the Queen can't dissolve Parliament if she wanted to.
They should get more involved in different communities and different celebrations that we have here in the UK, seeing as it is made up of so many different cultures. So it'd be nice to see them get more involved in Diwali and in Eid.
Right, so they're the thoughts of some of our listeners. Rena, Thomas, what do you make of the point somebody raised about, I suppose, Thomas had his hands in his air saying the Queen can dissolve Parliament if she wants to, so we'll set that one straight. But in terms of them being, let's say, private and a little bit shady, Rena, what do you make of those sort of comments?
I think they're less private now. We know so much about them. Like, the Queen, I think, maybe was the last generation to be so private, because I actually remember being little and talking to my sister, having conversations about, the important things in life, like, does the Queen eat fish fingers? Has she ever had fish and chips? And because you think, oh my gosh, like, how posh actually is she? What does she do in her house? You just see her like come out and wave to people and do the Queen's speech. So, and I think with each generation that's followed her, you know a little bit more about them. And even like with Prince Charles and all his kind of, what happened with his love life and the way he just comes out with things that he thinks and that may not be very popular opinions. And then obviously Prince William and Prince Harry. I just think that with each generation they're a bit more open.
But Thomas, just because they have an Instagram account doesn't make them suddenly more open, does it, surely?
No, it doesn't. And we have to remember that public life is very different than a private life, and they are entitled to a private life. But this country, we expect a lot of the royal family. A lot of us have the general misconception that it's tax-generating revenue that actually funds the royal family, and it's not that either. So when we look at things like this, regardless of where the funding comes from, we expect the Queen to be the Queen until the day she dies. We expect them to work hard on behalf of this country, all the realms in the Commonwealth, so we expect to see everything that's happening in their lives. We expect that royal babies are not going to be their own. There is a very big interest in who they are, how they will grow up, where they will go to school, what sort of person will they be. And this is on the minds of everyone, but when we look at our head of state, we're comfortable with the head of state because we spent our lives learning about this person. We trust this person because we intimately know this person. So whether it's Prince Charles or Prince William or Prince George that will come to the throne, there's going to be a majority of the people that say, well, you know what? He's not that bad. He's a good head of state. We know what he's about. We know his incentives. We know his prerogatives. And I think that when we look at what we're getting, I think it makes people feel comfortable. We've got into this comfortableness, if you will, with having a monarch, with having the monarchy. And I think that that shows a lot about where this country is at. It's there because it's an institution that's instilled in us from birth, because we grow up with these people.
Really, you disagree?
No, we did grow up with this, but I'm not going to lie, when I was younger, I did actually think, what is the point of the monarchy? What do they do? And when I learned that it is not the Queen who makes the laws and governs the country, I was literally like saying to my dad, well, what is the point of her? What is the point of her? You know? Because he was like, no, it's the Prime Minister, it's government. And so I was a bit disappointed.
Yeah, as a taxpayer, you're funding that.
Yeah, because I didn't get it. As a youngster, I was like, well, what is the point? And even growing up, I was like, is it just to bring in tourism?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know.
Well, and one of the Voxes also said that they're a representation of our country, but I don't think that that's fair, because it's not a fair representation of who we are. Let's say in this room, we're a diverse room right now, but the royal family aren't necessarily a representation of that.
I know, but then they are a symbol of Britain. They are.
Yes.
And when you go different places in the world, people are interested in them. Like America, oh my gosh, how much do Americans love the royal family?
They make terrible, like 1 or 2 hour special dramas, don't they, about the royal family, and they make them and they come out quite quickly as well. But yeah, they are obsessed. The TV executives out there.
They are. They really are. More than British people, I think.
Well, and I would say so as well, because Americans don't have what this country has. And I was speaking to Rena during the break, saying that looking at Meghan being an American, being born there, and I was also born in America, so I've lived in a republic, I've lived in a monarchy, and hands down I can say that something that's higher than political power, something that is apolitical, that can unite people rather than divide. If we look at the highest seat in the land in America, which is President Trump, a very divisive character. We look at the highest seat in this land, which is Her Majesty the Queen. She's not put a foot wrong at all in her 66 years of being the Queen. She's inclusive, she represents the Commonwealth very well, and I would say, going back to what you had said, that the royal family might not represent us in this room, I think actually the Queen, as a single person, really does reflect everyone in this room. She's been to over 100 countries. She comes into contact with all different people. She has 16 realms, 16 countries of which she's head of state. So it's not just the United Kingdom and a bunch of white people that she is the queen of, that she looks after, that she likes to make sure that everyone is okay. It literally is the world's population.
Okay, well, we've got a couple more guests who are coming up as well. It's just come up to 11 o'clock. Do stay with us. We're talking about the royal family and royal fever and our thoughts on the current generation of this monarchy. It's just gone 6 minutes past 11 on the BBC Asian Network. I'm Ankara. I'm in for Mobeen for this week. We talk about the royal family. We talk about royal fever today. We've got Rena and Thomas who are joining me in the studio as well. But I've got some guests on the line this evening who are going to contribute to our discussion about the royal family. Do get in touch with us with the conversation, 81869. My first guest is Susan Kelly, who's come up with an interesting website regarding Meghan Markle. And I'll let you, Susan, introduce that website and what it's called and why you created it.
Well, What Meghan Wore is kind of an offshoot of our What Kate Wore website, and it's really dedicated to chronicling Meghan's charity work and what she wears. And as you've been discussing, I mean, she's immensely popular, enormously popular, and particularly here in the U.S., but, you know, all over the world. We have people who read the site and email and ask questions and share information from all over the world.
Okay, so tell me some of the questions. Well, what are some of the questions which people are the most curious about?
Well, right now, of course, it's all baby fever. Has she had the baby? When is she having the baby? Does she know what sex the baby is? Have they named the baby? And you can kind of just go on from there. But normally when we're not kind of in this baby Sussex mode, they want to know what specifically she's worn, and are there less expensive ways to get what she's worn to kind of match her style without the high designer price tags.
Okay, so a lot of people might say, why are we trivialising someone's fashion, someone's wardrobe, and why we're talking about that on national radio?
Well, I think that's a valid point. I also think, though, that what we wear, our apparel, our accessories, sends messages, be they clear, be they fuzzy, and a little hazy. But for a lot of people, what they wear is a part of their identity. It's how they want to be perceived. It's also, you know, a tremendous economic impact in every country, just about, but particularly in the UK. There's a huge multi-billion-dollar manufacturing and retail environment. It's very, very big business.
And I suppose when Meghan wore her wedding dress as well, people were searching for it instantly, weren't they, and wanting to know where they could get replicas, I imagine.
Almost as soon as she walked down the aisle, really. And it is a little insane. I mean, I'm the first to say that. It can get a little silly, or what we call silly season, where people just are really off the wall about things. But yes, they did want to know where to get the dress, where they could get replicas of the tiara, you know, what kind of makeup did she wear, the whole thing. It really was just incredibly popular, and it remains that way.
When I was watching the coverage of the royal wedding, the amount of times people just kept talking about all those things, like the accessories, the outfits, it became more dominant than the actual narrative of the wedding, I feel.
I think that's not out of line at all. I think we had some of that in the coverage here, and in watching coverage from there. It almost took over the ceremony, if you will, and the significance of the day. And that really wasn't the point of the day and what was going on. But again, it was driven, I think, by a lot of factors. You know, one of the driving factors behind it, to some degree, was Kensington Palace and the use of social media and the continual updates about who's making the cake, who the florist is, who's doing the music, what performers are doing the music. And it really kind of got into this, not minutia, but detail that we weren't used to having for royal weddings. Certainly not ahead of time like this.
Rena, you wanted to jump in?
Yeah, is it Susan?
Susan,
Yeah.
Could you just lower the volume maybe? Is there a radio on in the background? I could just hear an echo.
Is this a little better?
Yeah, that's better, yeah.
Hi, Susan. With Meghan's clothing, but how much of that is actually what she wants to wear herself and her own personal taste, or is it stuff that she kind of has to wear? Because I think I heard somewhere that she has to actually be quite conservative with her clothes. Like on her wedding, she had to have like nude manicure, and she's not going to be seen wearing red lipstick because that's not a royal thing. So I just wonder, how much is what she actually is her own personal taste, and how much is just what she has to go with.
I think a lot of it is Meghan's taste. There's a perception that there's kind of this rule book, and you will wear this, you won't wear that, you can do this, you can't do that. And that's not really the case. I think Meghan has immense respect for the monarchy, and she wants to be appropriate in any situation or event. But I think, she selected Givenchy for the dress, and she chooses what other things she's going to wear. People were worried, for example, that she would wear tights all the time as a member of the royal family, which is something she didn't do.
Is that what they're supposed to do? Is that what they're supposed to do, wear tights all the time?
There's a belief that they're supposed to.
Okay.
And certainly Kate usually wears them, for example. Sophie usually wears them. But, Meghan comes from a little different culture. In California, we don't wear tights all the time. And it's a different background, if you will. And so she doesn't wear them all the time. And she has worn nail polish that is a little brighter. And, the palace hasn't caved in. The Queen hasn't sent her packing. And I think most of that is fine with the Queen and anybody else in the hierarchy at the palace. I think she is sensitive to wanting to be appropriate, but I think she very much is choosing the sort of thing that she would like to wear. The clean lines, the tailored fit, not a lot of frou-frou, and from designers and brands that she likes.
Do you think that's true, Thomas?
Well, I have to sometimes say, well, no, not necessarily, because there is pretty much a protocol for royal women. Samantha is 100% right that Meghan is very much from a very different background. It is Samantha.
Susan.
Oh, Susan, I'm terribly sorry, darling. Susan.
No worries.
Meghan is from a very different background, and because Prince Harry is not William, he's not going to be the one that's 100% on show. They are giving him, and therefore giving her, more leverage to be who they are, because they are seen as the it couple for young royals. These two are able to go out and do what others, such as William and Catherine, aren't able to do. So whether it's wearing stockings or not wearing stockings, okay, yes, but to a certain point and to a certain extent. And I want to take this back for Susan and see if she agrees with this, because before we had websites and all the social media, let's go back to 1981, and we look at Diana, and we look at all the frenzy that came with her dress and her florist and who made the cake. Royal weddings are big no matter which generation, whether we have modern technology or not. So when it was the Emmanuels, David Emmanuel and his wife, that actually made Diana's dress, it was absolutely fantastic what had happened. These two designers, a husband and wife team, they were inundated for years and years after. They built their empire just on Diana's dress. So I think regardless whether we have websites and all these modern technologies, that royal weddings are, of course, the fairy tale. They are women saying, oh, I want to be a princess. And in real life in this country, you do have a princess. And now we have an American princess who is changing the rule book, who is saying, I don't want to wear tights today. I don't want nude nails. I want to liven it up because I'm bringing something fresh. I am bringing something different to the royal family. So therefore, this, let's just say, unwritten rule book, which does exist, she's not definitely going to follow, and there's not much really that the Queen can do. She might have a private word, but, again, Meghan is not Catherine. Meghan is not Sophie, the Countess of Wessex.
Yeah, no,
Meghan's
absolutely.
very much her own person.
Yeah, and we're beginning to learn that as well. It's just coming up to 16 minutes past 11. Susan, thank you ever so much for joining us on the programme. That's Susan Kelly this evening. We're talking about the royal family and royal fever. Stolen on the BBC Asia Network. 23 minutes past 11. Good evening. Thanks for chilling with us. We're talking about the royal family tonight, getting your thoughts on the current monarchy and the pending birth of Meghan and Harry's first child, I should say. Before we get to our next guest, I've got Professor Frank Farley, all the way from the States, to give us his insight into what we've been talking about this evening. But first of all, I just wanted to play Professor Frank before he joins us. Some of the thoughts you may have heard earlier in the programme from some of our listeners on the streets.
I really do like the royal family. I love what they represent, especially William, Harry, and their wives, and they are going to be a great representation for the future generations. But certainly the Queen and the older generations, they've set what is a really great British institution, something that I may not be English, but I'm certainly British. I do see myself as British. They are something that represent this country throughout the world, and I really do feel that we should be proud of having them as a royal family. I just love the royal family.
It's just like everyone else, because they're important, because the Queen runs the whole country. Yeah, it's how they are, because they are royals. And I just like them because they're just nice people, and they dress up nice, they live nice.
The royal family can have its pros and cons. For example, it brings in a lot of tourism and follows traditions of thousands of years and represents the Commonwealth quite well. However, it can come across a little bit shady by being so private and closed, and it doesn't really have that much power over government. For example, the Queen can't dissolve Parliament if she wanted to.
They should get more involved in different communities and different celebrations that we have here in the UK, seeing as it is made up of so many different cultures. So it'd be nice to see them get more involved in Diwali and in Eid.
So the thoughts of some of our listeners. As I mentioned, I've got Professor Frank Farley, all the way from the States, from Temple University, a Professor of Psychological Studies and Education. Is that right, Professor Frank?
Hello, I'm fine, thank you, Anchor.
Good. I gave you the correct title as well, didn't I?
Yes.
Good, excellent, good stuff. Professor, what did you make of some of the thoughts of our listeners there?
Well, it covered a lot of the reasons that people like the monarchy. You know, one person was saying, I think, as I recall, they look nice, they are nice. But there's lots of people who look nice and are nice and have earned the attention that they might get. And the problem with the monarchy, from my point of view, and living here in the largest, oldest democracy, is that it's unearned. It focuses on people whose success is unearned. They didn't really create the success themselves. They did it through inheritance. And that's the wrong message for the 21st century. You know, around the world, we're trying to get rid of hopefully get rid of monarchies and that kind of power, and create democracies throughout the world.
But the UK,
so therefore, even though the world...
But no, I just want to say the UK is still a democracy, though, whether it has a royal family or not.
That's right. But the image of the royals and all of the attention that they get, and these people just inherit it. They didn't earn it. They were born to it. And that's the wrong message around the world. Sure, England, the UK has got a democracy, but they've also got the monarchy at the same time. And it's the wrong message in the 21st century. You know, we need democracies everywhere. And the fact that, you know, I don't think President Trump should be going there to visit, you know, the royal family. And they're nice people, so far as I know. They seem to be nice people, but that's not the point. And yes, they have economic value for the UK, but still, they're medieval. They are from the past, and it's really time to move on into the 21st century and not have the vestiges of monarchies and royalty that we pay homage to all the time.
Professor, what I wanted to do is focus on the psychological aspect of it as well. Do some people feel that they'll see this as a sort of comforting feeling? They'll see there's a strict adherence to procedure, tradition. Is that something which people like and take as something quite comforting and they can relate to, and that's why they like having a royal family from a psychological point of view?
Yes, some people, for sure, and I understand that, of course, and I'm sympathetic with that. But there are many ways to, lead a happy and comfortable life, and having monarchy in your world isn't necessary for that goal. And I grew up in Canada, which at one point was heavily influenced by the monarchy, but not anymore, basically. And people are happy there. It's a wonderful country, and it's a democracy, but it doesn't really have the royals the way that the UK still has. And the bigger issue is not so much the comfort of some people in the UK, but the image worldwide of monarchies. It's medieval, and it really is time to move on and create, a different life, public life for countries where they don't, worship a monarchy. And I worry about it here in the States too. There's still a lot of people who, are almost addicted to what's happening with the British royals. Weddings and children being born and this and that.
I suppose an American actress, though, being married into the royal family is quite an interesting thing for Americans to relate to.
Yes, it is. And, America got rid of the royals, a long time ago at the founding of the country. But I have noticed that there's still an awful lot of interest in them today. And, they're interesting people, and they, and so on. Again, it's the principle that concerns me. And is it demotivating? Does it demotivate people who look and say, I can never become, something, a famous person or a highly successful person because I'm not inheriting anything.
Okay.
And that can be demotivating.
Okay.
And that's not healthy.
Okay, interesting, Professor Frank. I'm sure loads of monarchists out there won't be coming to you anytime soon for a pep talk, I suppose, in the royal family. But thank you ever so much for joining us. Just before we wrap up the conversation this evening with Thomas and Rena in the studio, just to get your thoughts on it as well, from a psychological point of view, the royal family, they sort of have this semblance of order and structure which people can relate to. But Professor Frank was obviously talking about other aspects of it.
You know what? I actually did kind of understand what he was saying there, because like I said to you before, when I was younger, I was like, what is the point of the royal family? I think they're a waste of time and money, really. I don't really see why we have them anymore. And like, he was saying it's a medieval thing. So I understand what he means. I don't know if it's because I've mellowed out as I've gotten older, or I've just seen that, in a way, they bring the country together, I guess, when things happen or the celebrations, and it kind of puts a spotlight on this country as well. And I just think, they're a bit like a tourist attraction in a way. Like you have this kind of like tick list of what to see when you come to this country, and then Buckingham Palace is one of them, and then that interest in the royal family and what are they doing, who's getting married, who's having a baby. It's one of those things, I think, and I don't know. I don't think it's so bad. And when there are things in this country that people are downhearted about, like when there's times of recession and stuff, and then when there's a royal celebration, people do celebrate it, and there's nothing wrong with that,
Yes, people seem to celebrate all over the world, Thomas.
Exactly.
Yes, in times of celebration, in times of war, when this country and Commonwealth countries have won, they've always cheered the monarch, and when things go bad, they boo the Prime Minister. That's just the way it is. But there is a very important function in the modern day for the royal family. And even though Professor might have thought it is antiquated and medieval, it's not. It's not at all. People strive for success, and the person who really publicly celebrates success is Her Majesty the Queen. We have the honor system. America doesn't. When people strive to be their best, and they have been awarded an OBE, an MBE, a CBE, Victorian Cross, all of these things, those honors are presented by the Queen as head of state, not just some family that has lots of money. So parallels to the United States and Great Britain, just because we have a royal family, it's not different than the United States, because they're celebrating wealth. They're celebrating inherited wealth, the Kennedys, the Bushes, all of these big political dynasties that they have there. It's no different than the royal family, except our royal family touches thousands of people a day. That's what they do, and they're in every community. If the Queen can't be somewhere, a member of her family goes and makes those communities feel that they are part of an active nation. Whereas the President, you don't have him in every country. He can't just send a member of his family to go. So when we look at unity, we look at the positive things that the royal family actually celebrate. They're celebrating us as people.
Yeah.
They're celebrating all of our successes. They're celebrating community success.
I kind of think that they need to keep earning their place in the country as well. And I just...
How do they do that?
Like speaking about issues, like I know that Kate Middleton, she's spoken out about mental health issues, and I think Prince William does that as well. Like Harry supports Invictus Games, and Meghan in her own way is also, like, she's known for actually speaking out about things before she even got married, you know. She's quite an independent thinker in that way. So I just think that they need to keep doing these things, because I know that, you know, they go home and eat, I don't know, caviar or toast, or whether they eat caviar and toast, or I don't know what the royals eat, but they're living this lavish lifestyle, yes. I just think that if they can make a positive impact by speaking out about issues that need to be spoken about, then they need to do more of that, I think.
I just got to make a quick point as well before we go about the similarities between, let's say, the royal family and many Desi families, right? Many Asian families around the country. So you'll have the fact that you're marrying an institution, the overbearing mother-in-law, weddings with lots of bling, lots of family drama, and arranged marriages as well. So Rena, maybe a lot of our listeners and our audience will find many things in common with the royal family. That's maybe why British Asians, when they migrate over to this country, they find a lot of empathy with them.
Yeah, they love it. It's kind of like watching a serial on Star Plus, isn't it? You know, who's going with who? Oh my gosh, look at the daughter-in-law doing this. And I actually think that that Asian families here should actually get inspiration from the royal family, because, like, I think it's harder for British Asians to accept a mixed-race person into their family than it was for the royals.
Yeah, very fair point. Yeah, absolutely, and we can all learn a thing or two from that. Thomas, Rena, thank you ever so much for joining with me and hanging out with me, talking about the royal family, royal fever. On the BBC Asian Network, 11:46. Thank you so much to Rena and Thomas who were with me and hanging out and talking about the royal family and royal fever. And one of the comparisons I made right at the end was, I think, very pertinent for us and our audience. I think when we look at, let's say, our own families, or sometimes they can be as dysfunctional as royal family as well. Look, put it this way: you marry an institution, you don't just get married, you marry the family. You're stuck for life. How dare you think it's about you? Loyalty, duty, sacrifice, demands are all appropriate marriages to appropriate people. You have to untick the wrong religion, divorcees and liberal women. As for gays, what gay is in love? Well, there's Bollywood for that, isn't there? That's what some people may say. Well, that overbearing mother-in-law, I mean, is that something of the past now? Well, there are certain characters of the British royal family who are ripped straight from a Desi soap opera, according to some. You have that sort of battle between the overbearing mother-in-law and the long-suffering daughter-in-law. And, well, weddings with lots of bling as well. We saw Meghan Markle's wedding to Harry last summer. And, well, Desis and royals, they share ancient culture, the same love of tradition and all things material as well. You have to have the right clothes, right hair. Bling is extremely vital as well, and I suppose that's something which Desi elders look to the Queen matriarch, someone who's quite a similar figurehead to them as well. And obviously you get the family drama. We talked about the fact that the royal family are pretty much like a soap opera, and then you're always going to have something which is going to be in the tabloids and the newspapers, and it's always going to be something which is well documented no matter where it goes all around the world. And yeah, we do have a fascination at marriages which explode, so to speak, and the drama that ensues with it as well. And arranged marriages that knocks onto as well. It's something which is happening obviously less and less, but it's still prevalent in Asian culture. And Charles and Diana, you could sense, is an arranged marriage in the classic sense of it as well. She married at 19, and then things needed to become more lax with William and Harry as they've come over the years, and then Charles eventually sort of marrying Camilla, who is allegedly his true love, people used to say for years. Well, not allegedly, it is now, because they are very much together. So yeah, they are some of the comparisons we were making earlier between Asian families and the royal family as well.